Hey everyone, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Jen, and welcome to Devilish Bookworms, the podcast.
where we read and review books and release episodes every Tuesday.
This week, we have Sky's End by Marc Greggson.
Ooh, ooh.
Conrad hasn't always been alone. Once upon a time, he and his mother, his father, and his sister lived a life of luxury amongst the other highs. That is, until his father died and his uncle banished him and his mother to a life of struggle, sickness, and death. When the opportunity arises for Conrad to improve their standing and rise in rank, he can't refuse. He will do anything he can to rise, save his mother, and defeat his uncle and find his lost sister. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, Rachel, let's dive right in.
Dun, dun, dun. So this book, Sky's End, is slaying it. It's slaying on all fronts. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. It's been picked up for a movie. He, you know, I, I am just hats off to the author because he is crushing it. And this is
Mm-hmm.
one book, again, that we've wanted to read for a long time. And I'm so glad. I don't know why we didn't do it before. It was almost like we've been talking about it like every couple of weeks whenever we do our lineup or whatever. We'll like talk about it. And then I don't know why it took until now to get it on the roster.
I think there was just a few that were like higher on our TBR and had release dates around the time that we were choosing. So that kind of just pushed this one back a little bit. But I'm so glad we
Mm.
finally got to it.
I know, me too. So at the beginning of the book, Conrad is living in the lows with his mom. And we learn very early that his uncle is like really high up in the highs, and his uncle has his sister. He like took her as his heir or whatever. And Conrad's father is dead. So it's literally just him and his mom living in like squalor, just living in like the worst conditions. And his mom is really sick.
Yeah. Watching someone in that state is like never an easy thing, but the fact that they came from such a high position and got thrown in the trenches and to witness his mother just getting more ill and more ill and more ill. And every
Mm-hmm.
time that he tried to get her the medicine, there was always something that happened. It was rough.
Yeah. I almost feel like there was something almost Hamlet about it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
the compromised mother, well, I mean, in a different way, I guess.
yeah.
Um, but like the evil uncle and, um, what I thought was really cool in the beginning was I always preach about how, you need to set the relationship, set the relationship, set the relationship. That way we care if something happens. And I think that, so right off the bat, his mom is sick, right? And then what is it, like the first chapter, he thinks that his mom is dying.
Mm,
And he's like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. And then we're like, oh, well, come on. That's a bummer. And then she doesn't die. And I was like, oh, now I'm kind of invested. You know what I mean? Because it was like a baby, like a baby roller coaster of like, his mom was sick. He thought she was dying. She didn't die. Even though we didn't really care about his mom, we still had a little, or I still had a little bit of like relief of that, like, oh, well, that's cool. Oh, phew, she didn't die. You
hmm
know, I thought that was like a really fun way to like circumvent that whole like spending time with a character before you even like got into the book.
Honestly, I agree this time because it really was done well to the point where I was kind of like, ooh, oh no, this is not good. And
Yeah.
and then she's not fine, but I mean she's okay. Um, but his mission to go bring his sister back to her before she dies was just that was a sweet touch. but also made me invest more in the mother's health.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a win-win situation. First we have her dying, then we have the hunt for the sister, and then boom, more tragedy.
Yeah. So it's really important that we explain that this government system is a meritocracy. Basically, what that means is your standing is only contingent upon how effective you are, like how um like your ability, right? So the way that this system is set up is like they have challenges and stuff, and people who win the challenges get to be highs, and the ones that lose get to be lows. So basically, if Jen and my family go up against each other in something, and then Jen proves to have more ability or to be stronger than me, my family can fall into the lows until we rise within the ranks again, which some people might like, some people might love. I don't, I'm, I'm just like the middleman here.
Yeah.
um, but there are some cons that do come with that.
Yeah, I was had a bit of mixed feelings about the whole government system, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie, I thought it was very satisfactory when the guy they called bird shit, I love that nickname by the way.
Wait,
Um,
they call everyone that.
I know, but it was mostly him, which was Pound. Okay. So
Oh.
his name is Pound, but all throughout the book, everybody called him bird shit. And he, like, obviously there was a couple of other characters that they used that, but at the same time, he was the main one, and it was fucking
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. Anyways, but he was a high, and well, unfortunately, he lost his dueling match and became a low. And this, like, it was only gratifying because of the fact that he was screwing with Conrad's life. Like the entire time he was a high, he was a low, he's been a thorn in Conrad's and his family's ass.
Yeah,
So,
their families are arch nemesis,
yes.
like the Montagues and Capulets.
So it was actually really gratifying to see the system work against him, per se, but to see the amount of damage that it was doing to the others was kind of like, well, there's definitely a lot of cons here.
Yeah, I think this book specifically expresses how detrimental that kind of system is because they were just a bunch of dicks.
Uh-huh.
Like they were all just jocks with no, like they were all very blah, they're just garbage people. Everyone was out for themselves. Everyone was out to, which
That's still
whatever.
today's society, unfortunately.
Yeah. They were the Atwoods, and when Conrad called him Asswood, every time he said it, I died. It was so funny.
Yeah. He there was just there was so many laughable moments that I didn't expect to be in here. Um, Especially because it seemed like such a serious scene. But
Yeah.
you've got all this death, all this poverty and sadness and just this rough life. And yet you have like asswood and bird shit and oh my God. It was just there was definitely some good moments here.
When the boys were just being boys, when the dudes were just being dudes, right? Those were my favorite. When Conrad got those moments of like within the games or whatever, when he got those moments of camaraderie, I
Mm.
love it. So Conrad is such an important character because at the beginning he was very much like his father's little clone, right? And his father, well, I don't know if that's fair to say, but his father was very much the epitome of what you would want in a meritocracy. Like everything he said was, who cares about the other people, and think of yourself first, and do anything to win, and empathy and and caring about others is weakness. And he was very much that, like, I'm trying not to say alpha male because I don't want to throw up in my mouth, but like he was very much kind of that, you know what I mean? That just blah person. And I almost feel like at the beginning of the book, Conrad kind of idolized him. Or did you get that feeling too? It was kind of like he didn't agree with everything his father said, but it was still kind of like that. That was his father, so he still like cared, you know?
Yeah, I think there was a certain amount of respect that he had
Mm-hmm.
for his father being able to hold his title for as long as he did. But I love the fact that his mother was in the back of his brain just as much.
Yes.
That I feel like, you have to have those two voices. You have to have the good and evil, the right and the wrong. You have to have some sort of just bantering going on in the background to help you make decisions. And sometimes that little voice is not always right, but at the same time, there's a secondary voice if you listen hard enough that will kind of guide you a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his mother's voice compared to his father's voice. I feel like it was like the angel devil situation. You got one on each of your shoulders, and you're trying so hard to listen to each one side.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that he wrote it like that. And I'm sure that this was specific. I'm sure that this was the reason, was because, it dived into the concept of like being just a product of, your upbringing. It's like, I don't want to say nature versus nurture versus, any of that, but kind of that idea of when you're taught a certain way, can you think for yourself? Like, I think it could have been, I think it would have been very easy for Conrad to have become a carbon copy of his father, especially with his father having been such a strong personality.
Yeah.
But being able to take that and other things and kind of like mold it into an amalgamation of, he was able to think of, this is what I want to be, this is what I don't want, this I want to take strength and whatever from this, but this can go in the garbage. I think people have that idea of like, if you don't agree with someone, then everything they say is trash. But like, they could very much have valuable things to offer. And I'm sure, like Conrad, from what I was able to see, could see the things that were worth value in what his father said,
Mm-hmm.
um, but kind of cast away the rest of it.
Yeah, and I think he also took like his uncle's perspective into it as well, because that's the epitome of what he didn't want to become. And some of what his father's teachings were what his uncle was actually portraying. So I mean, I think that also helped a lot. But yeah, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, I hated his father. Like he
Mm,
just had that mentality that like you have to step on everyone you can to rise, and like he taught him that, like, you know I don't know. The perfect example is like you can kill something for food and still respect it. Like there were a couple times in the book where they were like, kill it, kill, kill, kill. And I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like you can still kill something and respect it, or value something's life, but need to push them off a ship. You know what I mean?
I would feel like you should have seen my face. I like I looked down at my mic like, what the fuck is she saying? Who are you gonna push off? Oh goodness.
So I do want to say, just so everyone knows, so in this particular avenue, there's these games, these trials. And so there's a war being waged, And in order for you to, it's a very military based system, right? And so, like, in order for you to get on a good ship with a good captain and a good crew, you have to win these like trial runs, these quote unquote trial runs. And basically, what they do is they put a bunch of people on a ship with a captain. And I mean, like, you have to go through trials and stuff to get on the ship and whatever, but they pick a captain, they put you on a ship, and basically you go and your goal is to kill as many of these monsters as you possibly can before the trial is over. And then if your team wins, then you get to it was like you got to captain your own ship.
Yeah. And you get to choose your own crew.
Yeah, and like everyone in the crew that wins gets to like have prize money. So Conrad gets on this ship with a team, and of course he's on the team with his arch nemesis. And so they're whoever wins as captain gets to pick whoever, like the roles of all the people on the crew. And so of course Pound gets captain, and of course he gives the worst job to Conrad. And so now he has to like navigate his world and like figure out how to win while being in the crappiest job. Poor Conrad goes through it.
And you want to know something? I absolutely love that he did get chosen for Swabby, because I thought, because of the fact that it was like the most impossible place to rise from. So everybody knows that that is the worst position to be in. And only one person has ever before made it from Swabby to captain and retained the position. And the fact that he had that kind of challenge was going to be what he needed to figure out, is he a good person or is he a bad person?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. I don't know. I really appreciate the underdog, you know?
Everyone loves an underdog.
Absolutely. How can you not?
And just what kind of odds were against Conrad at the very, very beginning when they were going through like these little trials so that they could get on the ship. There's a character that beat up, well, there's a couple characters that beat up Conrad before he even got out to like do his little thing, like to compete. And so that like everyone hated him. No one wanted him to rise again because his uncle was like the douchiest of douchebags. And so they like jumped him before the trial, and he had to like fight with a broken rib.
Hey, I mean, some people have advantages during a tough fight, others have disadvantages. And what would an underdog be without a disadvantage?
So I wanted to ask you,
Oh boy.
because this is a reoccurring theme. Do
Okay.
you believe that there are truly selfless acts?
No,
Okay.
I really don't believe that anybody can be 100% selfless.
Mm-hmm.
You help someone because you want to feel good about yourself, or you want the good karma for it, or you want praise for being the person to help someone. There's just, to me, it's like most of these videos that go around and oh look, I helped a homeless person eat today, or I gave a homeless person $1,000. They're not being selfless in that instance. And I think even people that don't use a camera while they're doing that aren't being 100% selfless.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is someone out there that's 100% selfless, but there's always something that you get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I know a couple people that kind of feel similarly. It's
Mm,
an interesting thing to think about.
yeah, it is. I'm even going to say the thing. Even if I was to help you with something I feel like it's still not 100% selfless. So I just bought you a book. I wasn't expecting money back from you. I don't care. But knowing that you're happy makes me happy. So it in turn still makes me feel good. So it's like it still wasn't 100% selfless. Even though I'd take a bullet for you in a heartbeat, it'd be because I'll feel better knowing that you're alive. You know what
I
I
can
mean?
see that. I can see that.
So I don't know. I can't seem to think that there's anything selfless in
Yeah.
anybody. But what about you? What do you think?
I do think that there are completely selfless acts.
Okay.
And I think that they kind of happen more often than people think that they do.
Okay.
But that I feel like that's kind of the nature of the game, right? If we knew about the things that people do without wanting praise, then would we really would they really be without wanting praise? You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. It's like it's hard to tell who's truly genuine about what they do. So,
But that I mean, and therein lies the issue of if someone if I give money to a charity and I don't care about feeling good about it because it doesn't make me feel anything, but other people get to be like saved or whatever, you like wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I wouldn't be getting anything out of it. Like here's the like I don't think that Keanu Reeves donates to charity because he wants to feel good about himself. And I don't think that donating to charity makes him feel good in the way of like, ooh, I just donated. I'm the best. I saved people. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely think that he probably does it because that's just what a decent human should do, you know?
Yeah. I just feel like I've witnessed so much hate that it's so hard for me to believe in selflessness.
Sure. Another thing that Conrad's father said to him, amongst, like there being no such thing as selfless acts, but he also said at one point that only the weak apologize.
Oof.
Ew.
That it bothered me so bad.
Right? Especially when being apologetic is one of the strong, like being genuinely apologetic for something that you did wrong is one of the strongest things that I could think you could possibly do, is to take accountability for something.
Agreed. Absolutely. 1,000% agreed. Because
Yeah.
it's so much harder admitting you're wrong than it is to lie.
Right?
It's so much harder. I mean, I don't care. I'll admit that I'm wrong. There was one day I admitted at work that I was wrong in front of my boss, and I said, hey, I'm wrong. I have no issues, but I don't understand why there aren't more people that would rather sit there and just lie. I don't get it. Like, what do you gain from lying? Stupid. Sorry. It drives me crazy. I hate liars.
Stupid. So stupid.
Can I talk about Samantha for a moment?
Of course.
So I knew there was going to be characters that I disliked in this book. Every book has that one character that stands out. Samantha was probably my top hated character, maybe second character that I hated. Because
worse than Sebastian?
It was very close. It was very close. But Sebastian, because of what he did to Samantha, and then after, just kind of made him that worst character. So I would say Sebastian, Samantha, and then there was one other one. But Samantha took the cake. So she was an elite member of the hunt. So she didn't even have to take a test to get in. She didn't have to go through the trials. She didn't have to do any of the bullshit that everybody else did because her mom was super important. I didn't even give a shit what her mom did. I like this woman disgusted me. So she was like, "Oh, well, if you do this, then my mom's gonna uh come after you and blah 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 blah." Well,
Just
at
wait
one
until my father hears about this.
yeah, she was like, "Oh, what was that? Veruca?" She was the Veruca of the group. Okay, could not fucking stand her.
Veruca.
Yeah,
Oh, Willy Wonka.
Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. Yes, I want it, and I want it now. That's the type of vibe I was getting from her. Oof. But um, at one point, one of the teachers tossed a rag to her and said that she needed to wax her boots and be the swabby. And she was like, "It's unbecoming of my status." And I love how this teacher clapped back. She sat there and said, "I don't care who your mother is. You've not been tested, Samantha. Your mother's clout does you no favors here. Not only am I a select, but I'm a master trainer and a captain of the hunter. Now wax my boots before I make you lick my heels."
That was such a good quote.
When I tell you, I physically clapped. I was like, yes, yes, lick those heels. I was so happy. Thank you for giving me that, Mark. I needed that. There was very few moments where I got like really excited about the clapback or the sheer bullshit that person ended up going through. But that was one of my favorite parts. Oh,
Yeah, it was great.
I love when people get put in their place.
I do think that there were a couple of instances of, well, I mean, not even a couple, but there were some instances of like karma. I think that was one of the biggest themes of the book was that, you know, listen, I'm just going to go ahead and say a thing. Like, I know exactly why this book was picked up for a movie. Like, it dives headfirst into themes of like honor and integrity. What is teamwork and how do you foster like trust and loyalty? Like, is it possible to rise above your station while maintaining like morality and being a good person? I There were so many, you know, that this book was written by a teacher because we all sat in those classes with our workbook books while people were like, so what is the deeper meaning of this? And what is the hidden meaning here? What does this symbolize? And
Yup.
I thought that it was glorious.
There was a lot that was just so awesome with this book. And obviously, we've just barely touched on not even half of the book. That's like we're barely even a quarter into the book for discussion. Like, there's definitely a lot of guts in such a brief time.
I think overall, like every character had a beautiful arc. Like there was no stone left unturned. There were bits that tugged at your heartstrings. There were bits that pissed you off. Like there were some moments when I was so filled with rage from a book, and I was like, "How dare you!"
It also left you rooting for characters you weren't expecting to root for.
I love that.
I like the shock.
You were shook.
I was shooketh.
I think chapter 26, I'm not going to say like what happens, but I think chapter 26 is when I really fell in love with Conrad. Like he shows empathy for everyone despite what he was taught, like even the people he doesn't like, even the animals that he has to kill, like even his enemies, he shows respect for like life and for people and for just I just dig him. He knows what has to be done and he's willing to do things if it's necessary, but also like he has his strong morals and he's not there are lines that he is not going to cross no matter what.
Yeah. And I love the element of respect that came into that chapter right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far into that, but it was woven perfectly into it without, I don't want to say, yeah, it was just woven perfectly into it.
It's hard because like some books you don't want to give spoilers because the book is too small. Some books you don't want to give spoilers because there's not a lot of like in-depth situations. This book I don't want to give spoilers simply because it's wonderful.
Yep.
Like I don't want to ruin literally anything.
Right. So I have a weird question for you.
I have a weird answer for you.
Awesome. Was there any characters in this book that surprised you more than others?
Yes, and I'm not saying which one.
Ah, I'm
It's
so glad
spoilers. I can't.
I know.
It's the
But
one. It's the one.
yeah,
To the point where there was a moment when the character said, "I'm leaving," and I was like, "You can't leave."
bro, I know that part. Ugh, but yes, I agree. I I could not believe it.
Yeah. There were a couple of characters whose arc was very surprising,
Mm,
even to the point of I have mixed feelings about the uncle.
yeah.
Like there were so many, oh god, these characters are not one dimensional. They are very much like people you think you can trust, you can't. People that you can't, be in the same room with are your best allies.
It threw me for such a loop with all the different variations of characters that we ended up getting,
Mm.
opposed to the ones that we thought we were getting.
I think the one that I was talking about,
Yes.
it might be one of my favorite characters.
Ah, I can see that.
And I can't even
Okay.
explain to the audience. So like, okay, there's the thought of if being a good person is easy to you, does that really make you a good person? Say that you're raised by good people and you are taught right from wrong and it's very easy for you to be a good person, right?
Mhm.
You're not vengeful, you're not like you're very stable, whatever. And you're a good person. Like great. But say that you have demons and say that you have like darkness in you or say that you have like things stopping you from being a good person and you are a good person, it's harder, right? Like it's harder for you to like that's almost more honorable than being just a good person because it's easy, you know? Am I making any sense?
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Uh-huh. Like cuz
Um,
some people it's easy to be a good person. You're just a good person. And then other people's, excuse me, anyways. Other people have to like fight their demons or fight their darkness or fight whatever to be a good person, right? So they have to wade through all that crap first and then be a good person. It's not as easy for them.
right.
So I was going to say that the person of whom I spoke, whose name I cannot say on the podcast because of spoilers, could possibly be my favorite character for that reason, because I almost feel like it was harder for him to be a good person, because
Yeah.
I feel as though Conrad was innately a good person, right? Like he did have extra baggage and extra stuff, but like he was so mentally sound and he was so in tune with who he wanted to be, that I think that it was difficult for him to be a good person when everyone was telling him not to be, but I don't think that it was like hard. I don't think it went against who he was as a person. But the other person, I almost feel as though like it was way harder for them to be a good person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I
Okay.
can, no, I absolutely understand what you mean, because it's like you have all these things stacked against you and you still prevailed through that to be a decent person. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who was your favorite character? Did you have
Master
one?
Coco. Yep. Master Coco.
You know what? I see it.
That sassy little thing, I absolutely love her. She badass. 100% badass.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I love the fact that she basically told Conrad she was disappointed in him for not being a friend, for not trying to be a teammate, for all his faults that no one else would stand up and tell him. Like everybody else just kind of kept away from him at that point. And she sat there and called him out and told him, no, this is not how you become a team player. This is not how you become a leader. Leaders don't do this. If you want to be a leader, then you need to be friends with your team. You need to, just work extra hard. You need to make the proper decisions. And I love the fact that she was that person for him when he had nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think that that's a great way to show that like the people who you look up to, your mentors, the people who shape who you are not always the people that you think they are. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have a parent, right? Then maybe you have a parent figure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that person who maybe you don't have either of those, and the person who's really going to help mold you into who you're going to be is your friend. Or maybe that person is a teacher. Nod, nod, nudge, nudge, wink, wink to the author. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
that person who helps you mold you is someone who you wouldn't have even thought. And I love that she was that kind of that person to help mold him.
Yeah. It's one thing to hear from someone, oh, you're not making smart decisions. But it's another thing to be told, this is why you're not making the right decisions. This is what you need to do to improve. To have to be that person, to have to say those things is not easy as well. But people know it needs to be done, but it still doesn't always get done. And I think it takes an even stronger person to be able to sit there and criticize and teach.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think because it's no one wants to be preached to, so no one wants to preach. And I think that there are a lot of people who she very well could have said, it's none of my business. They're on their own. They're an adult. They can figure it out. And I feel like there are so many people out there that do that. We've
Mhm.
gotten so far away from that kind of um tribe mentality to where now it's like everyone is on their own. Well, I'm not going to tell her. Like, are you going to tell her? I'm not going to tell her. Is it my place to tell her? Should I be the one telling her? Like there's so many factors that I think people are too scared to say, hey, listen, you're kind of fucking up, you
Yeah.
know? Like, because then Are you going to get the clap back? Are you going to, and I love it when characters aren't scared to say, listen, if you keep going down this road, it's not going to turn out well for you. Because we all need that person. I would much rather surround myself with people who are going to say, listen, you're kind of fucking up, than have
Yep.
people say, man, she really fucked up.
Yep.
Like, let me know. And on top of that, to build on that, if you come at me and you say, hey, dude, I think you should probably reassess the situation. And I reassess the situation and I decide that what I'm doing is what I really want to do. That's the ideal situation, right? Like, come to me with your other ideas. Come to me saying, hey, maybe if you do this, and then allow me the decision of being an adult, being able to make my own decision of what I want to do. I will take your feedback, I will take my feedback, and then I'll make the best choice for myself.
Absolutely.
Because we all want that autonomy, but I also want to know when you're like, are you sure?
Yep. Thankfully, we have each other for that. But not everybody's so fortunate. So if just me saying this to, people, like if you have that opportunity to be that person for someone, do it.
Mm-hmm.
They probably need it more than you know.
And know that it's not always a waste of time. There's someone that I love very much who is kind of the mentality of like, well, I'm not going to give anyone advice anymore because what's the point? They never take it. So I'm just wasting my time. And I don't think it's ever a waste of time. I do think that there are people who aren't ready to hear you, but I think that those are the times when it's most important for you to speak up. It's never a waste of time to try and help someone.
Facts. Wow, we just got really deep on you guys.
Boom.
Wow. See what books do.
See what they do. But yeah, I think Conrad's probably my favorite character. If not Conrad, then the other one. They're nose and nose.
Yeah, I can see that.
Can I say something really quick before I forget?
Sure.
There's a character named Eldon.
Yep,
And I have never in my life heard that name except for my grandfather's brother. My grandfather's brother's name is Eldon. And I have never heard of that. Like, no one in book, movie, not that I can think of, have I ever been like, oh, snap. Like, hey, that's funny, Eldon. I know.
I can't see or say that I have either. Like, even besides your, like, even beyond your family, like, I didn't even know. But yeah, no. Huh. Interesting.
I just had to make a note of it because I was like, wow.
I like the name though. That's really cool.
Eldon. Eldon's a cool guy.
I don't know if I met him.
Both Eldons. No, you've never met him.
Okay.
You've never met the extended. Like, you've met grandma and grandpa. And like, did you meet? I think you met some of the cousins, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely met some of the cousins and the cousins' kids.
Anyway.
Well, I'm sorry. I also met one of your cousin's best friends because of Grandpa's celebration of life.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that.
Some of them. So, I mean, I've met quite a bit of your family.
That's right.
And I've also met your dad's mom.
Guys, literally, like, I don't know how much of this Jen's gonna cut out, but like, find you a real one. They're like, 2 times in my life since I've moved, I have really emotions. I've really needed my best friend. And both times I made a phone call, said I need you here, and both times this beautiful bitch on the other side of this podcast hopped on a plane and like came in like, and stood by me when I needed her.
And I also supplied the tequila.
You did supply the tequila. It was very necessary.
It was necessary. That was a rough one.
Yep.
Emotions
Yep.
just like anyway. Yes.
Back to the book.
Oh wait, I'm gonna say this one last thing. I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. Okay, now enough of emotions.
I just feel bad that I couldn't be there like for you because you didn't tell me.
I was barely there myself.
I know.
I almost missed the funeral, and that would have killed me even more.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite quote?
Yes. So the two of my favorite quotes are kind of like back to back. They're kind of in the same sentence, paragraph ishness. But one of them is said throughout the book, which I loved. So the first one is, the world wants you to be someone you're not. And like I said, it's said throughout the entire book, and he's constantly reminded that the world is trying to force you to become someone you're not. And it's true every day. There's going to be things, obstacles put in your way, put in someone else's way, that will cause you to falter and cause you to almost become someone different than you should be. And I love that this was a constant reminder for him.
Absolutely.
But my all-time favorite quote was, remember, having power over someone isn't strength. Pushing others down doesn't solidify you. True highs lift others while still remaining on top.
Oh my God, I fucking love that quote.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think everybody needs a reminder that you don't need to put anybody else down to be able to still be up there yourself.
Exactly. And we rise together.
Yep.
Oh, I love that fucking quote.
Same. I can't tell you. I can't tell you how quickly I grabbed my little Post-it notes so I could highlight that section. How about you? Did you have a favorite quote?
I did. I have 3 that I'm going to say. Okay. One is, the strong are the ones meant to lead because their crew has chosen them. What did we say about taking care of your people? It is important. The strong are the ones meant to lead because their crew has chosen them. Boom.
Boom.
Absolute
boom.
And then I dig so much. I dig some people want to be better than what the world wants us to be.
Okay.
So listen, I love Beauty and the Beast in all forms, in all iterations. I love Beauty and the Beast to the point that it is unhealthy. Okay. And the amount of times, this is the first time I've said this to another person. I promise I am not exaggerating. I'm a dramatic hoe, but I am not exaggerating. The amount of times that the line, I want so much more than they have planned, goes through my head when she's up there on the freaking hill and the wind is blowing and she's like, and for once, it might be grand to have someone understand. I want so much more than they have planned. It goes through my head constantly on a loop. Do you know why? Because some people want to be better than what the world wants us to be.
Say loop one more time.
Loop. And then my other favorite quote is between two dudes. One says, "Don't you ever sleep?" And the other one says, "Only after I visit your mother." Boom.
Oh my God, that scene was so great.
Listen, I know that it's immature, and I know that like some feminist out there is really mad at me right now, but like your mom jokes crack me up.
Oh, they're so good.
God, why are they so funny?
I don't know. They don't have a right to be this funny.
No, and you know what's the best is when me, my brother, and my sister-in-law tell your mom jokes to each other because it's the same mom. You know what? I do it to you too. So
Yep, you do. You do. So overall, Rachel, what did you think of the book?
I loved it. I loved it. I know I said it before, but like I can 100% see why this book was picked up with like so much success because it's so don't I hope the fantasy people don't come for me. There are some books that kind of follow the same path, right? And I will say that this book kind of it's very much within its genre, right? However, it's so much different. His writing style at first, I was like, I was worried that because sometimes with fantasy, it's a little hard for me to pay attention. Like I have to extra focus because the way it's written, you know what I mean? Like there's so much to it. There's so much like I kind of have to like focus. It's the same thing as oh my god, please don't come for me, world. It's the same thing as like if I'm watching Star Wars, I'm watching Star Wars, right? Like I have to pay attention.
Yes.
But if I'm watching Pride and Prejudice, I can come in and out because it's like, you know what I mean? Like I can do stuff while I'm watching it because it's just different, you know? So like with fantasy, I have to focus. And at some points in the like I was worried. I was kind of like, oh god, okay, really have to like pay attention. But it flowed so well that it wasn't like that. Like I didn't have to train, you know, like I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Like I don't like books like this or like questy books or like genre books because I totally do. Did I just say genre books? Anyway,
Yeah, you did.
the fuck is wrong with me? Anyway, I don't want it like that, but it flowed really well. The story was so much different than on anything that I mean, there's things that I could like pick, you know, like I oh this is kind of similar to this, oh this is kind of similar to this, but like for the most part, no, it's so much different. I really liked it. What about you?
I agree. Like this book was so up my alley. Like you've got so much to it. Like not to like just keep going around it, but you have questions of ethics and there's science and there's weaponry and like there's just literally so freaking much guts to it. And I love how everybody had their their strengths. And I think that this book will hopefully inspire a lot of people struggling with how they want to be and who they will become.
Right. Absolutely. I think that it beautifully plays into like men in particular, I think, who have a hard relationship with their fathers and like that identity crisis. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this book is good for everyone in what it means to be a good person, what it means to have honor and integrity and all that stuff. But I think that there are so many like strong women for women to look up to. And I think that this is a perfect example of like more masculine people having um someone or something to look up to, if that makes sense.
And on top of that, emotions and struggles and, you know, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
And dealing with, you know, whether it's okay for someone to apologize or okay for someone to show empathy or care about people.
Yeah.
So Sky's End was written by Marc Greggson, and it was a New York Times bestseller. Mark is a 7th grade English teacher, and you can find him on Instagram. Instagram on Instagram, MJG_WRITE. He is also on Threads. You can pre-order signed copies of Among Serpents on his Linktree, which is on his Instagram. And then his website is marcjgregson.com, marcjgregson.com. I just loved this book. It's so rad.
I'm gonna try to have my kiddo read it. She's like
Yeah.
anti-book, but I'm going to highly recommend it to her and shove it in her arms and tell her read.
No, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that it should be one of those books that, I mean, it just so beautifully teaches you how to be a decent person.
It really does. And I think a lot of people need that.
Yes. We're all floundering, but we don't want to help ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we need a push. All right, Jen, can you let everyone know what we are reading next week?
I sure can. So next week we are reading Under the Surface by Diana Urban.
Ooh. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening again to another episode of Devilish Bookworms Podcast. We hope you have a wonderful week. And if you can, check us out on all of our socials at Devilish Bookworms on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads,
and we YouTube.
And YouTube. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.